the aid. Trump blocked it for dirt on his political opponents. What if he could develop a quid pro quo relationship with the Russians over 7 phone calls since he's left office? I don't know. I'd like to hope not. I'd like to hope for our country and for Europe and for Ukraine that's not the case, but it leaves me very concerned.
Well, Dylan, you don't even have to go back to the sanctions we have against Russia now and lifting those. Like, Trump lifted the sanctions that Obama had placed on the Russians. Like,
yeah, prior to the invasion,
within a year of
prior
of
to
being
the
in
invasion,
office.
I think what a lot of people neglect to realize too is the fact that a lot of times when we're like tallying up that total number of aid that goes to Ukraine, what we're doing is if we send a Humvee that was purchased by the U.S. government initially at, let's say, like $100,000 and it's depreciated over a significant period of time down to like $20,000, when we send it to Ukraine, we still mark it at $100,000, and that's why that tally is so fucking high. We send piece of shit military equipment, which is very significant to Ukraine because, let's be clear, both sides are fighting, at least at the beginning of the war, we're fighting with pretty shitty weapons. The Russians
Clear, it's getting worse.
Yeah,
they're getting older and older.
The tactic of the Russians has always been blunt force.
Oh, this was so
hold up, return. I was not finished. I was not finished. Return. The tactic of the Russians has always been blunt force with shitty fucking equipment. Okay, they were still fighting at the beginning of the war, both sides, with M91 Mosin-Nagants, which is the rifle that I hunt with. Okay, I would not want to be caught in a war with an M91 Mosin-Nagant. It's fucking bull action. I love the Mosin-Nagant. I love the Mosin-Nagant. Let's be clear, but I would not want to be caught in a war with it. So anyway, these things are still very like high value to Ukraine, but they're very low value to us. So when we send these things to them, they get marked up at market price, like what we would have bought them for, but they're not actually worth that, and that's what tallies up this huge price that you keep saying to Ukraine.
Australia, by the way, just sent a bunch of decommissioned Abrams, and these are Abrams that were going to be destroyed. So it's actually a question of saving them money.
And what's interesting too, Dylan, is these tanks, a lot like the tanks and the weapons and stuff that we're sending to Ukraine. The interesting thing is a lot of that shit was stuff that was intended to be used in war against Soviets when they were actually manufactured in the 80s, which is super fucking interesting.
They're claiming their birthright.
You know, like the number one thing that pisses me off the most is that the Marine Corps just gave up like 1,000 to 1,500 M1A1 Abrams that they're no longer ever going to use, and they gave those over to the Army. And those are now just in warehouses in Arizona. And
yeah, we'll never use M1A1s.
Aren't going to get used. Like, just fucking send those over. That's something that I feel like we should do. They're just going to be used as scrap metal in like 20 years.
Well, we're already doing that. We're sending all sorts of stuff. I saw them talking about even older tanks, like from like the 50s. They're talking about selling, and we've seen the success with the Bradleys. This is something I've advocated for to the Republicans a few times. Actually, one of the first times I've interacted with you, Dylan, we were on a panel. We were discussing the border bill, and I was not in favor of the border bill for a variety of reasons. I actually wanted the Ukraine bill to be separate because I wanted the Ukraine to be a separate issue because I thought the border bill was so bad. It was going to sink it, get the funding. However, that being said, as a Republican and as like a neocon interventionist, I like the idea that we're in there fighting the evil empire of Russia and China and all these other people. I can sympathize, however, though, with what happened in this election. I think it was just less a referendum on Ukraine and the allies, which is why I'm hopeful for Trump, and more a referendum on like, hey, why are we sending these money to other countries when our economy is so bad? We have these issues on the border, and I feel like that's kind of what I'm seeing so far in the latest poll results with Trump. And I'm hoping that we still support Ukraine. It was negotiated.
Dick Cheney lost.
The other thing to somebody, the point that somebody
lost.
said. The point that somebody said about the M1A1 Abrams, like we're not going to use them, right? Not only are we not going to use them, and they're basically useless to us, they fucking take up space, dude. They're huge tanks.
Yeah, it's a lot of
and when we get rid of them, we can fill them with like, M2A2s or whatever the newest Abrams tank.
What's been the wildest
manufacturing.
experience for me? The wildest experience is going here, riding in equipment and seeing equipment, and then coming home and being able to talk to my grandfather, the Vietnam vet, about that same equipment and what it was like.
Use the same shit. Yeah.
How cool is all the military tech? I'm just gonna ask. Like,
It's all over the place, dude. I was looking at
cool
3 World War II machine guns shooting down Shahid Jones in the Sumy Oblast last week. Like they've got you'll see a Maxim machine gun, then a Browning, then you'll see an Abrams, then you'll see a tank from like 1950. It's all over the place.
Dude, the drones. The crazy thing too is the drones that they
it's like
use.
a VR chat world where everybody brings the assets they have access to.
Literally, the drones they use. I've seen them strap fucking explosives to the same drone that I used to report at protests.
Can I ask you another question?
Literally, Ukrainians have been the most OG American military force you've ever seen with how resourceful they are, how creative they are.
It sounds like some rednecks.
That's why I really do think like it is a point of American solidarity, like truly to support the Ukrainians and the Israelis. But even more so the Ukrainians even. And I think we can move Trump on that. I think we can.
Can I ask you another question?
If Trump can be moved on that, like, I will eat my words on how Trump's just going to betray Ukraine.
Oh, I'm of the 100%.
As a Polish Ukrainian American, I honestly, I don't feel that's going to happen. But if it does, I'll eat my words on that.
I think Trump's going to be a strong supporter for Ukraine and for Israel, especially Israel. And I don't know who said more so Ukraine. I definitely support Israel more than I support Ukraine. I think that our relationship with Israel is slightly more important. I think that both are very important, and I very much support both. But I do think that Israel is like a very important buffer between the United States and its direct enemies.
And I don't want to get into the specifics about supporting Israel, but you could agree that Israel is a more useful ally in the long term, or has been, while also agreeing that the war in Ukraine is going to have a bigger impact on the future of Europe and European defense than whether or not Hezbollah specifically gets annihilated in this war.
Well, it depends because if the United States like just abandons Israel and Israel gets consumed by their neighbors, I think that's a much larger strategic loss.
But that's not going to happen.
Well, the thing is, we're not looking at
because no, that's not going to happen. You want to know why it's not going to happen? Because the Ukrainians. Because wait. Let me just finish this. Let me finish one sentence. We told the Ukrainians we'd starve them if they kept nukes. The Israelis got it, and we didn't give a fuck.
Let's say for a second